Imagine a world with no United States. No Washington, no Constitution, no global superpower shaping the world stage. Instead, imagine the rebellion crushed, the founding fathers defeated, and North America still under the iron grip of the British Crown. Today, we're diving into one of the most dramatic alternate histories of all time. What if America lost the Revolutionary War? Trust me, the world that follows is nothing like the one we know. In this alternate timeline, the turning point comes early. Maybe Washington's army collapses in New York. Maybe the French never commit to helping. Or maybe British reinforcements arrive just in time to crush the rebellion's last hope. Whatever the specific event, the outcome is the same. The patriot cause dies. Washington is captured, exiled, or even executed. The Continental Congress is dismantled. And Britain imposes the kind of harsh military rule usually reserved for its most rebellious colonies. The message is clear: never rise against the empire again. With the rebellion defeated, Britain wouldn't just forgive and forget. They'd make an example of the colonies. We'd likely see martial law in major cities like Boston and Philadelphia. Direct crown-appointed governors would rule with an iron fist. Crushing taxes would be imposed to pay for the war, and strict restrictions on speech and assembly would stamp out any lingering revolutionary sentiment. The colonies wouldn't just return to business as usual. They would become a warning. The entire culture would shift. Loyalist families would rise in power and wealth, while the very idea of an independent American identity would be erased from history. But here's where this alternate timeline gets truly wild. Without an independent United States, Britain would reorganize its North American possessions into a massive imperial bloc. Historians believe they might have merged the 13 colonies with Nova Scotia, Quebec, Newfoundland, and the vast Rupert's Land. This would create one enormous supercolony stretching from the Arctic all the way to Florida. A greater British North America that would dwarf anything else on the continent. And here's the twist. Canada, not the colonies, becomes the dominant region. English Canada would expand aggressively southward, eventually absorbing New England, New York, the Carolinas, and even Georgia. Imagine a map where the US doesn't exist, and Canada reaches all the way to Miami. Without the United States pushing westward, the rest of the continent fractures. France would likely keep Louisiana. Spain would hold on to Florida, Texas, and its vast territories in the southwest for much longer. The Pacific Northwest might remain a contested zone between Britain, Russia, and Spain. North America wouldn't be a single unified power. Instead, it would look more like Europe, divided, competitive, and unstable. There would be no manifest destiny, no US-Mexico war, and no single continental giant. And that brings us to the biggest shock of all. The world wars would unfold very, very differently. Without the US, there's no American industrial surge in World War I, no D-Day landings in World War II, no Marshall Plan to rebuild Europe, no Cold War superpower rivalry, no NATO, and no American century. The global balance of power would tilt firmly toward Britain. The British Empire might remain the globe's dominant force well into the 20th century, not fading, but thriving. English would still be the global language, but because of imperial might, not American cultural influence. Global culture would be unrecognizable. The United Nations, Hollywood, Silicon Valley, all would vanish or exist in a completely different form. China and India might rise earlier as counterweights to a still mighty British Empire. The world might be stable, but it would be under one massive imperial shadow. The American Revolution wasn't just a war, it was a spark. Its ideas of liberty and self-governance inspired movements in France, Latin America, Greece, and across the globe. Without that initial spark, how many of those revolutions would have ever ignited? The world could have remained dominated by empires well into the modern era. A world with order, but perhaps with less freedom. A world with fewer nations and more imperial rule, where the 20th century never becomes the century of the people. So, what happens if America loses the Revolutionary War? A massive British superstate dominates the continent, Europe carves up the West, and global empires remain powerful. The world never gets the United States, for better or for worse. It's a world of stability, but a world without the idea of America. Would that be a more peaceful world, or a terrifying one? You decide. Thanks for watching. And if you enjoyed this journey into alternate history, be sure to like and subscribe for more.